So I wanted to talk a little bit more about nationalities, because obviously yesterday this was a really interesting thing to bring up that sparked some conversation and debate, which I'm not going to fully repeat here in this video. You could check out yesterday's presentation if you wanted to do that. But instead of talking about American defensemen, potentially franchise-altering guys coming to Vancouver and Canucks fans being scared about that kind of a guy coming over because last time we saw that happen, he ended up wanting to leave. Let's talk about Swedes this time and get into the entire Ivar Stenberg conversation that has been, I don't want to say plaguing various fan bases and their discourse over the past few days, but it has been a pretty up and down path whenever you talk about Ivar Stenberg, the consolidatedly ranked second overall pick, a guy whose ranking reached number 1 earlier this year during the World Juniors. In fact, Cam Robinson has him at number 1 right now. The Hockey News' Tony Ferrari has him at number 1. He's ranked as number 1 by Sam Constantino, Bukala, and Smot Scouting. There are a number of other lists, though, that have Stenberg at number 4, for example. Craig Button has him at 4. Chris Peters has him at 3. It's fair to say, though, based off of the general consensus, when you look at all the draft lists and you compile them all together, Ivar Stenberg is the second best prospect this draft. And that's like the worst case scenario. Best case scenario is he's number 1, which was a legitimate conversation we were having back in January when he was doing pretty good things at the World Juniors and Gavin McKenna was not really displaying great leadership, and despite the fact that he scored more points than Stenberg, he was very disappointing, and the Canadian squad as a whole was just a very unlikable team this year. But I wanted to talk about Stenberg because even though he is a guy that is heavily ranked in the 2s, even in the 1s, there is a world where Craig Button's mock draft on TSN is the correct one. Craig Button's mock draft sees Ivar Stenberg going 4th overall to the Chicago Blackhawks, and that is a pretty hot take. It's a hot take because you would be taking the guy who was ranked number 1, maybe number 2, and dropping him past Vancouver, who is at number 3. The Canucks were in this conversation about a few months ago and talking about the World Juniors. Oh, the Canucks were really bad back in January, by the way. So there was legitimate reason for Canucks fans to debate amongst themselves. Who do you want more, Stenberg or McKenna? But now it's gotten to a weird point where second overall, San Jose, they're probably likely taking a defenseman with that draft pick. And the Vancouver Canucks, well, according to Jeff Merrick, according to Rick Dhaliwal, seems like the Canucks are going to go Caleb Malhotra, leaving Stenberg available at 4 and having him drop from 1 all the way down there. He could be going to Connor Bedard's wing if everything works out that way. But I wanted to revisit the Swedish element of it all, because in yesterday's commentary, we spoke about Chase Reed, an American defenseman. He's pretty good. He could go 2nd overall. He could go 3rd. He could go 4th. Who knows? But Ivar Stenberg is a guy whose Swedish nationality all of a sudden brings into part a new conversation that we hadn't really seen pop up over the last little while. The reason for this is because I have seen some Maple Leafs fans discussing whether or not a guy like Mats Sundin, who has now been brought into the Toronto Maple Leafs organization, yeah, of course, Mats Sundin, legend in his own right in terms of his Toronto Maple Leafs playing days, but he's currently a senior executive advisor of hockey ops for the Maple Leafs. This is a guy that, by all accounts, was in Sweden for the course of the past 12 months or so. If there's anybody that would have the immediate opportunity to have seen Ivar Stenberg up close and personal, it would have been him. And I'm not saying that he's going to say, oh yeah, we should draft that guy because he's Swedish and I'm Swedish. I'm saying that if there's anybody that probably knows him the best, Mats Sundin could be in that ballpark. Now, you can also debate whether or not, hey, Sundin wasn't working for the Maple Leafs the past 12 years. It's not like he's going to go out there and scout players in his free time. Like, he's hanging out with his family. There's reasons why he's in Sweden. He's there with the people that he loves. He's not going to take on an extra full-time position voluntarily scouting hockey players, right? So maybe there isn't really a connection there. But then you could also say the same thing about the Canucks, who are also projected to pass up the opportunity to draft Ivar Stenberg by most of the mock drafts we are seeing. Henrik and Daniel Sedin are reportedly being brought into a Vancouver Canucks executive role at some point. And I question whether or not the Sedin influence will bleed into the draft floor and dictate the way the Canucks think about their draft pick. That is, assuming Ivar Stenberg is there, of course. If he goes second to San Jose, then okay, that's fine. Like, all the conversations that we're having here don't really matter anymore. The best players went 1 and 2. That's the most generally reasonable outcome. But for Ivar Stenberg, I question if Henrik and Daniel Sedin, they could get some sort of a thought going amongst Canucks management that says that Stenberg could be the guy. We know Patrick Allvin, his scouting notes, they still exist in the Canucks organization. And I'd say that with Allvin's track record over the past few years, with Tom Wilander, with Jonathan Lekkerimäki, with Elias Pettersson, there's a pretty big Swedish, I don't want to say like bias per se, but the players that Allvin had drafted and the players that the Canucks have tended to focus on under Allvin's scouting guidance, a lot of them happen to be Swedish, and the Swedish ones generally turn out to be pretty good. If Patrick Allvin's notes heavily emphasize Stenberg, could the Canucks use that as ammo to take him number 3 instead of Caleb Malhotra, despite the fact that the Canucks need a center and all the mock drafts coming out have Malhotra going 3 to Vancouver? It's a really weird thing to be brought up because, like, there's a conversation about Stenberg going 1, as highlighted by Frank Saravalli. That's what he had in his mock draft. He had McKenna going 3 to the Canucks, which, if that happens, I wouldn't be all too disappointed with that either. But the fact that Stenberg could realistically be spoken about as a first overall pick, the fact that he could realistically be spoken about as a second and a third overall pick, and the fact that he could reasonably be talked about as a 4th overall pick is so bizarre to me. What is this guy, Shane Wright? Is he going to go from 1 all the way to 4? Shane Wright was a center, by the way, and there were other conversations to have about whether or not the winger was more valuable, but that's exactly what happened. The winger went first. Juraj Slafkovsky went first overall to Montreal, and it's not necessarily like they don't have any center issues, so I think now, with Ivar Stenberg in the mix, it opens the door to a brand new diatribe of fan passion on multiple teams' fronts. Toronto Maple Leafs fans, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Is McKenna going 1? Are you getting this guy? Are you going for Ivar Stenberg? Do you think Mats Sundin's having a say in that conversation? And do you think his preference would be to get Stenberg? If you're a Canucks fan, same thing happening to you. Do you think Henrik and Daniel Sedin would be interested in grabbing this guy for their team? We already know that the top-paid Swede in Vancouver, Elias Pettersson, apparently doesn't get along with the Sedins all too well. So, why not get another one? Who could potentially be better? Unless they just really, really decide that they want a center and they take Manny Malhotra's son. And then they don't hire Manny Malhotra because they think it's weird that they got the son and then the dad is the head coach. It's going to be a very interesting next few weeks. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.